Hi, my name is Bill Colias. I'll be reading the John Bosco chapter from Stories of the Saints, written by Carrie Wallace and illustrated by Nick Thornborough. When John was 9 years old, he had a dream so clear it felt like real life. He was standing in a field full of very poor boys who were acting up, fighting, playing, and saying awful things about God. John was a poor boy just like them, but he shouted at them to get them to stop. When he did, a man with a glowing face appeared, wearing a white robe. "You will have to win these friends of yours with kindness," he said, "not with blows. Show them that sin is ugly and goodness is beautiful." John was scared and confused. "I'm just a boy," he said. "How can you order me to do something that's impossible?" "I'll send you a teacher," the man told him. Then a woman appeared who glowed as if she were covered in stars. And the children around John turned into wild animals. "Stay in your field for now," the woman told him. "This is where you'll learn to be humble and strong." When she said this, all the wild animals turned into lambs. "Everything will be clear in time," the woman told John. The next morning, John told his mother and brothers about his dream. His brothers laughed at him. "So I guess you're going to be a shepherd," one brother said. "Or start a gang of thieves," said the other one. "Nobody knows what will happen," his mother said. "You could become a priest." Even John knew this wasn't likely. His family was poor, and at the time, almost all the priests came from rich families. "Don't pay attention to dreams," John's grandmother told him. But John couldn't stop dreaming. So he did everything he could to make friends with the poor boys in his town. John learned how to juggle and do magic tricks and acrobatics from a band of traveling entertainers, and started to put on shows for other children with prayers that he prayed before each and after each performance. He was too poor to go to school, so he worked at home as a shepherd until he was 12. Then he took any job anyone would give him for years, until he met a priest who helped him join a school. When John finally graduated, he was still so poor that he had to take clothes from a charity to wear to the ceremony when he became a priest. His first job as a priest was in Turin, which was a big city compared to the tiny town John had grown up in. It was full of poor people. Thousands and thousands had come from the countryside to work in the new factories, hoping for a better life. But they wound up in crowded, unhealthy neighborhoods, and their children lived in the streets or worked in the factories themselves. If poor children got into trouble, they wound up in prison. When John visited the jails, he was shocked to find children as young as 12 years old. One day when John was about to celebrate Mass, he heard another priest shouting at a child in the church. The child had started to cry, so John told the priest to stop his shouting. "Why should I stop?" the priest asked him. "Because this boy is my friend," John told him. Just like he had back in his little town, John began to gather the boys of the city together. He took them for walks and did magic tricks and organized a band of musicians to play for them. Because he didn't have a building, they met in the streets or knelt in fields to pray together. Every day, more and more boys joined him. But at night, they went off to sleep under bridges or in the street. John hated to see that. So he began to invite them to stay in his home. And his mother gave up her home, her furniture, and even her jewelry to live with him and be a mother to the boys. The first group of boys that John welcomed into his home stole all of his blankets. The next group he invited stole all the hay from his hayloft. But that first year, 20 boys wound up living in his home. The next year, it was even more. John started to open schools for the boys so they could learn to be tailors or shoemakers or printers or priests and teachers. Most people didn't think these boys belonged anywhere but jail. But John paid attention to what each boy liked and what each of them was good at, and he tried to find a trade that would fit exactly who each boy was. People who took on apprentices in those days weren't always kind to them. Sometimes they treated their young students like servants instead of teaching them anything, and even beat them. So John drew up contracts for his boys and other apprentices, requiring that nobody could use them as servants or hurt them, and that they be given regular rest and a holiday every year. Over the years, John Bosco's 40 boys became 120, and 120 boys became 600. Not everybody in turn was thrilled to have crowds of rowdy children in their neighborhoods, so practically everywhere John tried to find a place for his boys, people complained. He moved them from a church to a churchyard. He set up camp in an open field. Finally, he found a plot of land big enough to accommodate a home for 700 boys. A lot of people thought John was crazy for trying to help these boys from the street, who they thought were dangerous and dirty. The chief of police suspected John wanted to start a revolution, and a group of radicals who hated priests kept trying to assassinate John. But whenever anyone tried to lay a finger on John, a huge German shepherd appeared out of nowhere and followed John through the city until he was safely home. Then the dog would disappear again. He never took any food, but all kinds of people saw the gray shadow trailing John through town. So they named him Grigio, the Italian word for gray. And Grigio protected John for years and years, far longer than a normal dog would live. By the time John died, as an old man, he and his order had started more than 250 schools all over the world for more than 100,000 children. John never hid any of his boys, and none of his teachers were allowed to either. And he taught everyone who would listen that it was more important to educate the heart than the mind. Children must know that they are loved, he told his teachers. Knowledge alone never makes a man, because it doesn't touch the heart. Thanks for listening.